Well, hi everyone. I'm John Ritland, and this is my review, Dark Side of the Ring, Brawl for All. Quick disclaimer, if you are a fan of Vince Russo, you are going to absolutely hate my review because I am going to lay into Russo from a fan's perspective because, my God, he is one of the biggest motherfucking cancers to ever exist in the wrestling business. I do not use that word lightly, but he truly is. For any good ideas or any revolutionary ideas he may have had, Vince McMahon, the only talented Vince in WWE, had to reshape them and make them plausible and everything and take some ideas from this guy that says he was a fan of wrestling, but my God, he did so much shit here. It was fucking ridiculous. And yes, you can tell by the shirt back here that I am a fan of Cornette, even though I don't always agree with everything he says. I do listen to his podcast, and I do think that he sometimes does go way too far with his takes on modern wrestling, but he was on absolute goddamn fire here. So, how was this episode? This is one of the best episodes they did. This eclipses anything they did in season 1. I really enjoyed this one. I'd love to know what you guys have to say in the comments, because it went from here to here. It just went every goddamn where. It was pretty fucking intense. So Jericho narrating, Jericho doing a terrific job, and I hope they come back for season 3. And Russo has some clips of the brand, where he'll talk about anything, but, says he hates wrestling. Well, good, Vince, because it hates you too, and the fans hate you. And if you don't hate Russo and you can find something good in what he says and what he does, fine, cool. I'm not going to say that you guys are bad. I don't get how people can find Vince Russo appealing or like anything that he says, but okay, everybody likes something different. That's totally fine, but the vast majority of wrestling fans should hate Vince Russo. I only say that because the Brawl for All in particular ruined so many goddamn careers, and he doesn't want to take any goddamn blame for it. Fucking hell. So he talks about the early to mid-90s characters, how they were very cartoonish and everything, and they were. To be fair, that is one thing that was actually accurate, and a lot of people agree. There were too many stupid characters. There were a lot of people coming from WCW or Smoky Mountain Wrestling that were being given bullshit goddamn gimmicks, and it was really, really fucking stupid. So, the fans knew it was fake, and I hate that goddamn word. I hate using the term fake when it comes to wrestling. Predetermined, sure, but, if the fans want to know what goes on behind the scenes, sure, fans do want to know that, but fans don't like hearing that it's fake. At least most fans don't like hearing, yes, that wrestling, it's not. It's predetermined, all that stuff and everything. People actually do get hurt and everything, and calling that, oh boy. And one of the directors or whoever was says a Cornette because, it cuts to Cornette, because of course it does. Says, why don't you like using the word fake when it comes to wrestling? Cornette, because there's nothing fake about it. It's predetermined, choreographed, a whole bunch of stuff and everything. I wrote down, front and back pages of notes, so you'll forgive me if I'm taking a look just to make sure that I get this stuff right. But he says there's nothing fake about guys breaking their bodies down, and he's right. Vince McMahon, and he describes Vince McMahon. Vince McMahon is someone who is hard to understand. He's a genius. He's a demon. He has no other hobbies. Doesn't think he's been to a movie or the grocery store in like 4 decades. And Vince is a crazy guy. He is the WWF. I mean, it was the WWF at the time. McMahon lets Russo on the writing team because he was writing for the Raw magazine and stuff like that. I don't know how the fuck Russo ever wrote, because he never made any goddamn sense whenever he talked. And apparently his writing was like chicken scratch, and he was misspelling shit all the time. Cornette despised him quickly. Apparently just said, that he was a goof and he didn't want to learn anything about wrestling, and that he wanted to turn wrestling WWF television into the Jerry Springer Show. And Russo said they would write when, as they would write the show while with the Jerry Springer Show playing in the background. Yes, it was a hot show at the goddamn time, but it was car crash television. Remember the last good, entertaining Jerry Springer episode? It's been, 20 years? At least. I mean, I remember watching the Jerry Springer Show, and it was a goddamn car crash, and it was ridiculous, but it hasn't aged well. And even looking back at some of the stuff that was, in the late 90s, that stuff was shit. I mean, it was very much just a sitcom version of a talk show, but, oh, fucking hell. And JR basically said the idea came from Russo. There were certain people they talked to, Draws, Bart Gunn. Bart Gunn got featured very heavily here as he was the winner of Brawl for All. And Charles Wright. D'Lo Brown makes an appearance. There were others as well. And I really felt bad for Draws. I'll get to that here in a bit. But the reason that this whole thing happened is because Russo was not a fan of JBL and wanted somebody to shut his mouth. He was talking about how tough he was and everything JBL was, and he just wanted somebody to shut his mouth. So he created the concept of the 16-man tournament basically to shut JBL up because JBL was a bully. Now JBL is one of the biggest pieces of shit and also a cancer to wrestling. I'm sorry, he is. He is. He absolutely is. For any good that he might have done as a cocky heel, he was very detrimental to a lot of careers. And being a tough guy is one thing. Being a goddamn bully in any profession, any fucking profession, but especially wrestling, is fucking bullshit. Oh, but this is when men were men and this kind of stuff and everything. There's, again, tough love. There's being, there's having fun and everything. And then there's being a goddamn bully, and that's what he was. And that's why this whole thing got started. Bart Gunn talks about, his run with the Smoking Guns, with Billy. And they were actually a hell of a goddamn tag team. I really think that a lot of tag team wrestling from the early to mid-90s gets forgotten about as being pretty goddamn good. Smoking Guns were competing as late as 1996, I want to say. But after they broke up, his career kind of stalled. They did the New Midnight Express, Cornette managing him, and Bodacious Bob Holly. And he turned down the Brawl for All eventually. Kevin Kelly, however, convinced him, hey, this could be good for your career because the winner actually gets to get in the program with Steve Austin and gets a cash prize. So, okay. The idea is it's mixed fight, or, it's shoot fighting and mixed fighting, and it was supposed to be for real. So Charles Wright, the Godfather, talks about all the gimmick changes that he went through and everything, and how after the Nation of Domination, he had to become the Godfather. He eventually got to where he became the pimp. But he was he was kind of like a brawler for a bit until he really got to where he was, that pimp daddy. And he would get in bar fights and everything, stuff like that. We get draws, talking about how he got a job because he could puke on command. They show a little bit of footage from Beyond the Mat. And then names were drawn out of a bag, apparently, I guess, according to Bruce Pritchard, take his opinion for what it's worth, some of the lying sack of shit that he is. Booker T versus Triple H wasn't a racist storyline. Yes, it was, you dumb red-faced motherfucker. That's what it was. And no, I'm not talking about Conrad, who's somebody I can't stand either. Boy, hi, I'm a happy fan, aren't I? Brockus, you remember him? Bodybuilder guy, I think he was from Germany or whatever. He got buried. The people were like, he had no coordination or nothing. I mean, he looked good, but that was it. And they put him in there, and he didn't last very long. Man, they buried him really quickly. I mean, I'm just talking like in the show. Dr. Dusty Williams, you see footage of him in Japan, like All Japan, working for Giant Baba, a legit tough guy. He was brought in because he was supposed to be the guy to win. And it was going to be Dr. Death Steve Williams against Steve Austin. So Steve Williams versus Steve Williams. Because that's Steve Austin's real name, by the way, for those who don't know. And it started on June 29th, 1998. Which was the same day where Austin beat Kane right after, 24 hours after King of the Ring, after that first blood match. And it was 5 points for takedowns, 5 points for the most punches, 5 points for takedowns, and knockdowns were 10 points. And it was a point-based system, $75,000 cash prize. I heard $100,000, but whatever. There are rumors that Dr. Death Steve Williams actually got the cash prize in advance because it was like, oh, he's going to win. And then Russo and Cornette, Russo's watching at his house, Cornette's watching at his house. Thank God they aren't even in the same zip code, or good God forbid, that wouldn't go well. Draws, I almost said Alex Wright, Charles Wright, and others talk about it. And they're watching some of this stuff, and Wright said that he smoked weed before his fight, because of course he did. I think a lot of people did. I don't think he was the only one. And I'm just talking about smoking weed. But Cornette said, when you've got stupidity on this grand of a biblical scale, anything is possible. And it was a goddamn train wreck. The announcers they had talking about, Russo was entertained. Dan Severn was in it, UFC champion, NWA champion. I believe he was the NWA champion at the time. I don't recall exactly. Timeline's a little bit off on that, but he withdrew. He beat Charles Wright, Godfather, but he withdrew because he's like, well, this is going to damage my reputation. It wasn't the only reputation got damaged. Gunn and Hawley, former partners, they fight in the first round. Bart Gunn starts to rise up this stuff because, oh, wait, he's, got legitimate, tough man experience. Carl Alouette, who was, I believe, he was the pirate guy. I'm sorry. I think he was part of the Amazing French Canadians, if I'm right, in WCW. But he had one eye, and he was in the tournament. and he got beat up. I mean, big shock. Why in the world? They were taking lower card guys and trying to make something out of it. And like, if they had just done it like a work instead of a shoot, it probably could have actually worked out a little bit better. But torn biceps, torn quads, bruising, all this kind of stuff. And yes, you're going to get bruising, you're going to get torn muscles, you're going to get stuff in wrestling. But this is where everybody got injured. JR even said it didn't take but 1 week of TV to convince me that this had shit the bed and that it was terrible. It was a terrible thing. Bart Gunn was switched around in the brackets because of all this stuff, and he got to face Dr. Death Steve Williams. No one believed he could do it. They were ribbing him about it and everything, everybody backstage, and he's like, oh, okay. So he balled it up and unleashed it. Dr. Death suffered a torn hamstring during one of the takedowns and could not get out of the way of that hand. Boom. Bart Gunn beat him. There's your star. Cornette, and this is where, boy, Cornette's anger can really get upset. He said to Russo, are you happy? You know, you just cost the company $5 million in one night. And Russo was like, what are you talking about? You know, we made a new star and everything. He wanted to kill Russo right there. And it's a goddamn shame that he wasn't able to get his hands on him. I mean, I don't think he would have killed him, but my God, I know that Cornette can go too far sometimes, but Cornette being that angry at Russo, it's legit. And it's a good thing that he was, because there was really no reason for the Brawl for All to happen at all. It was a black eye. It was several black eyes. It was every goddamn bit. It was like a body put through a goddamn meat grinder. And that still doesn't describe all the damage that this did to so many people in wrestling. Yes, there were wrestlers that still competed for a while, but so many people were knocked out. Like Bart did what he had to do, and he beat him. And like, no fault of Bart Gunn, he did what he could, but he was a lower card guy. Russo knew Bradshaw knew that the tournament was built around him, like, you know, because he knew that Bradshaw, JBL didn't like him. And to be fair, like, why would anybody really like Bradshaw? Why would anybody like Russo, to be perfectly honest? That is the only agreement that I will have with Russo, is that he didn't like JBL because he was a bully and he was this and that. But Russo shouldn't talk about anybody else having a big mouth. So anyway, Bradshaw versus Bart Gunn in the finals, and Godfather talks about bar fights, and then we see footage first of Bart Gunn versus the Godfather, and he got the Godfather with a punch, knocked him out, everything, wobbly leg, and then Charles Wright talks about the infection he had in his leg. Maybe that was the stupidest thing in wrestling right there, because everyone got hurt. You think? Sheesh. Or because people got hurt. It hurt the company because all these injuries. It was fucking bullshit. We had Bradshaw versus Bart Gunn in the finals, and Gunn beat his brains in. I will tell you, nothing made me more happy than to see footage of that again, of JBL getting his brain smashed the fuck in. It's what he deserved. Unfortunately, it didn't teach him any goddamn lessons. He was still a piece of shit afterwards. But all that talk, and he got his brain smashed in. And gee, maybe you thought that would have humbled him. Nah, it didn't fucking humble him. It actually makes it even funnier that Joey Styles was the one. Little Joey Styles, little crackpot Joey Styles knocked out Bradshaw. Drunk or not, it's still hilarious. But Bart Gunn beat Bradshaw's brains in, and it was great to see. Even though Bart Gunn, nothing against him, I felt sympathetic for him here. But he was, again, a lower card guy. But he did what he had to do, and was like, well, I'm going to fucking win. And he fucking won. Let's see. Cornette says about Russo, the fucking moron doesn't understand what he did to the company, what he did to the roster. It was just fucking ridiculous. Russo, Cornette and I are the same age. When is this going to stop? It's going to stop when Russo admits that he's a fucking moron and that he caused a lot of this goddamn damage. Yes, Cornette can hold a grudge. And again, there are times I agree with him, there are times I don't. I agree with him on this. Russo is a goddamn cancer to wrestling. Cornette even, I guess, left a voicemail saying in no uncertain terms that Russo was a piece of shit and that he narrowly avoided getting sent to the hospital by being beaten with a baseball bat for what he did. Okay, yeah, I mean, leaving that on a voicemail, that was something. Russo said getting upset over wrestling, this kind of stuff. See, that's the thing. It's just a joke to Russo, when to many fans like myself, wrestling actually means something really goddamn good. And yes, obviously, you can like silly stuff and you can also like serious stuff, but to not take wrestling seriously in the sense that you have no respect for it, that's where I draw the goddamn line. That's why Russo's a goddamn piece of shit. So Bart Gunn never got his big push. He sat home for a while. He faced Butterbean in Mania 15. They talk about that, and JR says he looks like some sort of appliance, but boy, can he hit. And Butterbean, he's like with a walking stick and stuff like that, so he's clearly had a lot of health issues. I can't imagine why, because he was a pretty damn big guy with, even with his power, he was a big guy even at his height. And I'm talking like at the height of his career. Bart Gunn was set up to fail, and he was in a boxing class because it was going to be a boxing match, not Brawl for All. And he got beat easily. He got fucking destroyed. He even went to do MMA in Japan because Butterbean did. It's like, well, wait a second. I beat a guy quicker than Butterbean did. Maybe we could have a fight. They want him to fight in 4 days. He said, no, give me 12 weeks. And then the fight never happened. So it would have been interesting. He said, maybe I would have gotten knocked out again. Maybe I would have gotten one up on him. We'll never know. And he left wrestling. Bart Gunn, I really felt bad for Bart Gunn here. And Draws' injury, D'Lo says it haunts him. They don't blame each other, or there's no ill will on either side. Draws has no issue with D'Lo, and that's really good. They still talk. That's fine. That's really good stuff. Head trauma was talked about, and Russo's like, oh, maybe these guys are out of their elements. Maybe knowing all this stuff about CTE, maybe we shouldn't have done it. And they interviewed Bart Gunn to close the goddamn thing. So yeah, this one's a bit longer than my other reviews. Maybe with the exception of Benoit Part 2, but just the thing is, I had to just frickin' rail against Vince Russo because the guy is a goddamn piece of shit and came across even worse than he usually does, which is saying a lot. So anyway, I want to know what you guys thought of the Brawl for All. What do you think of the review? What do you guys think of the rest of the topics that they're going to have for the rest of this season? Like, share, subscribe. Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Retland. Russo's a piece of fucking shit, and I'll see you soon.